Okay, today we're going to learn when is the ideal time to make the bris milah. So we're going to talk today about milah bezmano. It's almost the same thing would be the same halach if milah shalom bezmano, but we talk about milah bezmano. So the tool brings like this: Reish Samach Beis in Yerideh. Zman milah, the time of the milah b'yom shmini leledosoi u'vayom v'lo balayla, to the day, not at night. Then he says u'misholo amud hashachar shel yom shmini u'tchilas zmano. At the beginning of the time of Milah, says it's from Alois HaShachar of Shmini, v'chol hayom kosher lekach, ela shezrizin magdimin lemitzvah miyad baboiker. So over here, he mentioned it begins from Alois HaShachar, from him mashma, it's Adarab, if you ask when is the ideal time, mashma from his loshon, from Alois HaShachar. However, the Bris Yosef and many other posts can follow the Bris Yosef, it says, it's lav dafke, that's what the loshon of the Bris Yosef, he says, ela sheyesh b'divrei Rabbeinu, he talks about the Tur, chisoron, shavar lemar, lichtav d'hainu b'di'evet. Alois HaShachar, it's bekosher b'di'evet. Aval lechatchila en molin asher tenei tzachamo. The mitzvah of lechatchila to do the bris, it's after tenei tzachamo. That says, the masnisin ochi is en molin v'lo teve v'lo mazen asher tenei tzachamo. B'kulon she'osu mishalom v'shachar kosher. Alois HaShachar, it's only b'di'evet. Lechatchila tenei tzachamo. He doesn't mention anything over here. And Aruch HaShulchan, he's mail his kaps chutz letur. He says he seems already spoke about it before. A lot of times the poskim don't repeat the same thing they already mentioned once, so he didn't go into that detail. But lechatchila, the ideal time, it's from netzachamo, not from alois. If he did it from alois, but the eved yotzo. That's how in Shulchan Aruch he mentioned the mechaber. He says like this: V'chol hayom kosher kosher lemilo, ela shezrizin magdimin lemitzvah molin miyad baboiker. Yeah, he says v'afilu milah shelo bezman ela bayom. So okay, so. In the beginning, okay, in the beginning, and molim ashten tzachamo. That's what the beginning of the halacha, the time of the then the Ramazim shalom the shachar yotzu b'di'evet. It's l'kul alma. It's no process. No machlekes over here. The ideal time, the beginning of the time, it's netzachamo and zrizin magdim. Now, l'gabe the inyan of zrizin magdim, and when the two halachas are there is a clash over here between one halacha zrizin magdim. It's okay. It looks according to this. So netzachamo, it's ideal time to make the bris, and all the mitzvahs l'chayra. Tkiyas Shofar, Mikra Megillah, or whatever mitzvahs we have, yeah. And then there's halacha b'Rav Am Hadras Melech. When you have halacha b'Rav Am Hadras Melech, so what do? If you do zrizin magdim, let's say you're going to have a minyan mitzumtzum for your bris, and if you do later on a lunch, you're going to tell it to come, or maybe towards the evening, maybe you're going to have bigger oilam b'Rav Am Hadras Melech. So what should you do then? So the emes is, on this inyan we see two extreme opinions. The opinion of Aruch HaShulchan, it goes to the other extreme, says that we should not wait the Rav Am Hadras Melech. He says, Adrab, we should do it in netzachamo. He says, Yesh k'peda gedolah l'shol ha'achro. Then he's like this, Ve'esh lonu litzvoyach al minag zmanenu. He says, we have to scream on what's going on now. He says, B'zmanenu, the Aruch HaShulchan lived about approximately 150 years ago. He says, Shema'achrin amila kama shoes b'yom ipnei shtusim. He called us shtusim, that will get people to get together. Shelo bo'u kol akruim. He called us the Rav Am, again, in this case, Keneged, listen, he called it shtusim. V'chadoim shtusim ke'ele, v'yesh l'koim shema'achrim ad achar chatzois hayom v'u oven plili. So the opinion of Aruch HaShulchan, he goes to the extreme, the earlier you do, the better, even it's going to compromise Rav Am Hadras Melech, and he called it adagach shtusim. It's like oven plili. That's his opinion. However, the Rebbe has exactly the opposite opinion. He goes to the other side. The Rebbe brings a lot of opinions, like the Aruch HaShulchan, that should be done in the morning. Especially he brings the Dei Chemet. That there's the Chemet has a nice coverage on this thing and brings a lot of rayas that should be done as soon as possible, even though you're going to have less people. However, then he says like this. He said like this. The Rebbe brings Chalukim Em Kanal, meaning all the rayas that Chemet bring, that they Zrizin Magdimen, it's greater than Rav Am Hadras Melech. He says it doesn't apply over here by the Bris. And especially, first of all, he adds a little bit to all the rights of the Chemet. He adds another thing. There's an Indian like the Chemet says, and like the Aruch HaShulchan. He doesn't mention the Aruch HaShulchan that it will be early. Why? He says the other b'milah tzrichas hakdama b'yoser b'yichud. Why? Dehu b'chol rega shelichu arehu orel. That little boy tell the Bris Milah is an orel, and we want to get him out of this oral stage as soon as possible. Umusa orla. He says, but then the Rebbe says, all this right, the Shona Hocha, the Atoyram of Pirush, or Bayom Hashmini, the Torah says, well, it's Richa Gvulim Bayom Zegufa. The didn't say Bayom Hashmini Benetzachama. The Bayom Hashmini, the whole day it's kosher. It's kosher. You can say it's not kosher. It's kosher. And then he's like this. Ella, the Lefi Zeh, B'Milah, Shelo B'Zman. Okay, I'm going to skip the Milah Shelo. I says, I want to go into it. It says here. It says, but in the Inyan he brings it in the footnote. He says like this. He says, by the mitzvahs, the Gufa mitzvah is done the way it is, without the Rav Am. You put tefillin, even though it's Barav Am, the Gufa mitzvah is done good without Barav Am, he says. Because Masha Enken, he said, over here, why don't in the mitzvah smila, the gufa mitzvah is an Indian to do it besimcha. The Gemara says mitzvah shkibul adayom, they do it besimcha. The Indian of simcha, b'rov am, you have more simcha. The mela says the gufa mitzvah is going to be done a lot better b'rov am. So he says the mela in this case by mila, he says the rov am would be all the rayas that will bring from different Gemaras. That's not b'rov am. Stam mitzvah smila, yeah, it should be done. If it's going to be same 10 people in the morning, same in the afternoon, the kul alma do it in the morning. But when you're going to have b'rov am later on, since the gufa mitzvah is done in the whole idea of mitzvah, like the Gemara says in Shabbos, that was done b'simcha. That's why we have this mitzvah strong adayom. He says me'melem that we should do b'rov am later on. You could do it later. Then he adds like this: "V'muchash royim shasimcha tluya b'rov am misvadim v'lefam yesh gam etzev b'imona achodim lavo." Sometimes you said somebody didn't make it for the bris. That's why he says over here b'rov am. He said like this. Then he concluded this. But people might argue, some people are still going to do in the morning, even the less people. Akaponim says, "Maspikim tomim elu ladaiti shlo leminoya beyada noagim kanal." Meaning, if some people know it like this, definitely don't rebuke them. Definitely they say malmashi yismoichum. But from the Rebbe mashma clearly that if you could do a better bris and happier later on, obviously without compromising, don't go to the wire to the shkia. Do it before, but you're going to have more people coming. Then definitely you could do it. Then in this case, B'rov Am Hadras Melech pushes the whole Indian. He says. Of Bezmano. And he brings a very strong raya from the Magen Avram, and that's how so many poskim follow this. The Alter Rebbe, the Mishnah Brura. L'gabe davening on the way. If you're on the way, the halacha is you could daven even a compromised davening, meaning sometimes you could daven while walking, sometimes while sitting, because you're on the way, and if it's calls for it, there's details in the halacha. But then it says, even the halacha says, I'm going to be coming to my place, I'm going to be able to be home or in the shul, but I could daven normal, it's going to be later. But since Zman Tefillah come, you could say, I want to daven now, not to delay my Zman Tefillah. Then it's like this, the Alter Rebbe. It's based on the Magen Avram. It's in Tzadik Dalet and the Rechaim. If you're on the way and you're going to come to a normal place to daven normal before Sov Zman Tefillah, it says lispal sham me'oimed. This way you can daven standing. Im yadu lo sheyelo shom mokem yuchet shlo ybalbelu b'nei habayis. Nobody's going to disturb you. When was shum en machmisim as a mitzvahs. The Chorah you could argue zrizen magdim and daven now the way you could daven it's kosher. Later I do the mitzvah even more behidur. Who cares? Zrizen magdim. It says no. Obviously don't say this. Why? You don't say that zrizen magdim the mitzvah. Kin shom miskabel gdelekam mitzvah min amuvchor. The zrizen magdim and it's equal. Everything is the same. You do. Zrizen magdim, you do earlier. But if you could do later on, mitzvah in a muvcha, do the mitzvah an ideal way, more besimcha, more people, definitely he says, Gabe Tefillah, sending the Rebbe applies this same concept of this halacha. The Gabe not only Tefillah, by Bris Milah, also you could do it later on.